It's a grand entrance for the round of 10 here in the next level race for the Octane Series Championship. Back to one of our biggest ovals on the campaign. It's been a long time coming, but the Octane Series will once again return to Fontana, California. Welcome to the Auto Club Speedway live on FTN. Qualifying has just begun for the California Coast 200. 10 drivers remain eligible for the championship in 2024, and the Octane Series is back for race number 27 on the season. I'll be your host, David Kreutz, commentating and producing all of tonight's action. It's going to be one of those nights where, of course, this is major for the title battle. If you can get that buffer out and on the way with a strong opening run, the championship, you might have a better chance of getting there. Last night, Nick Tarbuck was able to punch his ticket with a victory in Iowa, his first Ignite Series win of the season. He jumps up to the pole position immediately in qualifying, and we're looking at him right now in that number 4. He's got provisional pole by now, 1,000th of a second. Then you got Tom Wetmore, P2, Galen Gidman, 3rd, and Cody Smith then in 4th as we come across the line once again. 2 minutes and 38 seconds left. That's all the time there is for drivers to set their laps. Galen Gibbon gets up to 4th, and Ethan Lane once again going to put himself up to the top of the charts with a full 10th of a second advantage. Word has come in, though, that Ethan Lane will not be competing for the championship this season, as the NASCAR Contender Series schedule will be overlapping with his pursuits in the Octane Series. We'll get into a little bit more about what that means. All the while, Sam Nieto going to get back on the way. Here is the number 2 making it through. Nieto gets right by, and into turns 1 and 2, he'll go again starting in 4th. P4 tentatively for Sam Nieto, hoping to make it up inside of that podium. 48 thousandths of a second. That's the room he needs to improve here as he goes for a 3rd lap. So he's already taken his 2. Looks like he can improve once again. Galen Gidman going to be right behind. You got Cody Smith in 6th and Don Stevenson then in 7th. Bobby Ross is P9 right now. 11 drivers have taken the time. Michael Orion, that number 44 machine, also going to be on the move. Lariah still chasing win number 8 on the season. Let's see, of course, how he does in his qualifying run. This is his first lap. Quarter of a second off, and now going to be on the move once again. 8th place in that opening lap, and still some room to improve here. 1 minute and 7 seconds left, and it looks like he'll be the final driver to attempt the time here tonight. Ethan Lane sitting on the provisional pole for what could be his 13th win of the season. Michael Araya might be looking for still win number 8. Nick Tarbuck, of course, after winning last night. What a story it would be if he swept the week, which has not yet been done this season. The closest was Justin Trombley all the way back the beginning of the year, which was the Octane Series and the Ignite Series when they first headed into Fontana. Nevertheless, Michael Araya not able to improve significantly, and so his lap time will still sit him in P8. Now, interestingly enough, Michael Araya going to find himself very far behind the rest of the big 3. Nick Tarbuck is 2nd, and once again, it will be Ethan Lane leading the way. Final seconds of qualifying, Lariah 8th, Cody Smith up to 6th, 12 drivers attempt at a time, and once again your defending race winner is back up to the top of the board. Ethan Lane, very familiar face at the pole position, and he's found it once again. Checkered flag here in qualifying, and so it's about time that we move on to your main event. Going racing here with 100 laps on the line. We got 5 minutes of extra warm-up in between, and as soon as we get through this brief period of waiting, then it'll be time to go racing once more. Auto Club Speedway has given us fantastic racing. You might remember the first time we came to this track, which was in early 2023. Caitlin Height got the checkered flag in what was eventually a 3-way dogfight at the tail end of the campaign. It was especially impressive as, of course, drivers week in, week out have come to this circuit in many different leagues. The Octane Series, its first time with the Gen 4s, so even for the veterans, it might be a little bit different right now with respect to figuring things out. Ethan Lane has a chance to go for up to 14 wins this season. He's going to be, of course, looking for his 13th tonight, and this is the last chance he has to go out and get to victory lane before the Contender Series comes into play. Speedway. Let's see what Ethan can do tonight as we take a look at your starting grid from top to bottom. Farewell race here for the number 54 crew, Ethan Lane, up to the top of the charts yet again, 39.749, and Nick Tarbuck. And it looks like for here on out, Tarbuck and, well, of course, Michael Arai will be the big two. Nick is going to be starting on the outside of row number 1, 39.849 for Tarbuck, and Tom Wetmore then in third, 39.851. And Wetmore looking strong after a very solid, albeit modest day in the Ignite Series last night in Iowa. You got Sam Nieto will be in position number 4, and Galen Gidman in 5th, with Cody Smith 6th, Don Stevenson 7th, and Michael Araya P8, Ross Cadle 9th, and Bobby Ross concluding the top 10. 11th place is going to be John Steele, and then Brad Patton in 12th. Only 12 drivers took a time, and of those times, the top 10 spread out by just about 2.5 tenths of a second, a quarter of a second overall. The gap between 11th and 12th is significantly larger, coming in at a second and a half in itself. The field spread out in qualifying times by just about 2.2 seconds as a result of Brad Patton's lame duck lap, which only puts him up into the 12th position. Then you got Jacob Fife in the 13th position. You got P14 right beside him, Bobby Terrell. Both drivers are going to be starting based on their iRating, and so Fife, a winner in the Ignite Series as of late, is looking to get the job done in the Tuesday night tour, something he has not done ever since 2023. Chuck Sweeting is going to be in 15th, and Alan Rawell will be P16, the last driver on the starting grid. 17th, Randy Fiash, the number 55. And so 9 rows and 17 drivers make up your lineup for tonight's event in the California Coast 200. Welcome back to Fontana. Gone in real world, but of course here in iRacing, a chance to preserve that sim racing action regardless of what happens outside of the sim. Laser scanned to a T, the most accurate simulation racing in the world, once again coming back here in California. Fontana had 25 years as a venue here for the NASCAR Cup Series, and what a wonderful 25 years they were. Unfortunately this year, if you've seen any photography from the Fontana, California area, you would know the only thing that's left of this racetrack right now, if it's even left there at all, like to this moment, would be the front straightaway and some of the grandstands, other of which have been donated all throughout the country. However, the majority of the track has been full-on demolished, and so what you're seeing here is all that's left in the memory of Auto Club Speedway, one of the most notable tracks in the past quarter century, shall we say. It might look an awful lot like Michigan, and we'll get to that comparison more as the night goes on, but it has its own identity. You can see here the palm trees right down the back straightaway, the bright blue color for Auto Club, and it is a vastly different track identity-wise than what it was even 25 years ago when it kicked off its use case in 1997. So 25 plus years now, but 25 of course in those last races of the circuit just a year or two ago. Jacob Fife making his way into the first 2 corners, well-defined grooves. That's one thing that comes as a result of the age of the pavement, since there were no plans, of course, to redevelop the pavement as a result of demolishing the track entirely. This track is worn in heavy. As a result, rushing down the back straightaway, these drivers are going to feel each and every bump, as minute as they might be. You can even see them using our TV cameras here and getting close to that front end. You'll see maybe perhaps the tires digging into the corners just a little bit more, Fife getting loose, but it's nothing all too serious. Nevertheless, Bobby Ross is quickest in this session. He comes in with a fast time of 39.877, a time that would have put him in P4 in qualifying. Draft times are going to be that much quicker, so Bobby Ross taking advantage. Final practice has ended, and so all those wrecked race cars are going to go down a pit road and get immediate repair. That's the last chance they'll get to, of course, be fixed up all night long. Time to go racing once again. From Fontana, California, we welcome you to the Auto Club Speedway, and the starting grid is now in line. And here, of course, front and center, Nick Tarbuck. With the news that Ethan Lane will no longer be contending for the championship, it leaves a major gap in the picture. Of course, we've mentioned how dominant the driver, the number 54, has been all season long, coming in now with more than 10 victories, something, of course, that we didn't expect to see when the season started. We saw a little bit of parity between those three drivers, but then, of course, they all rose above the competition. And as a result, tonight, it's going to be a completely different picture because now the top championship contender, who has 13 victories to his name, looking for a 14th, it's going to be out. He has 25, or rather 50% of the wins, and at that, he's gotten himself 16 top 5s and 17 top 10s in only 23 races, relative to Lariah, who's run all 26. Nick Tarbuck has also only run 23 as well. Ethan Lane, of course, regardless of how the season ends for him, it will not end with a championship. However, it's going to be for more fruitful pursuit, shall we say, in his sim racing career. Unfortunate that he will not be able to finish out the season, but Lane has been given the opportunity to compete with the best simulation racers in the country for a chance to enter the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series with a prize pool of over $500,000. Lane is now in the top 70 bracket for all sim racers, oval sim racers in the world. So it's a high, of course, prestigious honor to get to that point. Now, of course, Ethan's got a chance to go out there and compete beyond the realm of league racing, which will leave Tarbuck perhaps with a chance to assume the position as the provisional title leader, shall we say. With Lane's final race being tonight, Lariah and Tarbuck find themselves second and third seeded. Michael Lariah is currently second, but his qualifying run not the most impressive. We'll see how he's able to climb through the field tonight. He's been successful at turning around subpar qualifying result into, of course, podiums and top 5s before. He'll have to do that again, of course, to keep that championship lead alive and maybe lock himself in for the next round. Diving into pit road, the iRacing official pace car will leave us with Ethan Lane one last time, bringing the field back to green. Welcome back to the California coast. Green flag racing for the Auto Club Speedway, and Ethan Lane will drive in the opening corners advantageous. So now Ethan Lane going to be leading the race. It's the number 54 up and ahead. Nick Tarbuck second, and Tom Wetmore then in third. Top three drivers going to be separate right now by only 3.5 tenths of a second. Very little, of course, to say of the opening laps here. Drivers are going to string out single file, not having any problems of doing so. And now, as we move on to the next stage of the race after that initial start, it's time to figure out what the strategy is. Speeds are going to be rather high all night long. Corner speeds of about 160 some miles an hour, then rattling down the back straightaway. We've already gotten up to 170, getting through 180 at the middle of the back straight. Ethan Lane will command the field up to a speed of 195 miles an hour before turning into turns 3 and 4. Not often we marvel at the speed of a circuit, but Auto Club Speedway is a little bit different from that of Daytona and Talladega, and much more similar to that of Michigan. You might remember, if you're one of the fans of stock car racing going back some 40, 50 years, that at one point it was the Michigan International Speedway that hosted a 600-mile event, 300 laps at that track in its own venues. That was in the 1970s anyhow, and well, we don't see that any longer, much like other former Special events such as the Rebel 500, 600 miles at Michigan, it goes by rather fast, faster than it would at a track like Charlotte, in which that takes up 400 laps. Here, of course, when it comes down to the racing, 2 miles are done quicker with wide sweeping corners. And at that, you've also got drivers going at it by putting the pedal down, and as long as these drivers have downforce, they'll have the ability to put speed in. Open wheel racing used to come to Auto Club a little bit more frequently. That stopped about 10 years ago. You're going so quick, you can hardly put down that downforce, and those stock cars, of course, that you see on your screen, significantly heavier than any other racing discipline, at least in the North America. So we no longer see anything that doesn't have a closed fender on this track, and unfortunately we have seen some tragedy in the open wheel ranks. You might remember Greg Moore in 1998. That, of course, has not been seen or paralleled in stock car racing, and while we've seen some brutal hits, you might remember Denny Hamlin in 2013, just after we got through the car of tomorrow, and the next-gen era, of course, was a decade out. There was a concussion for the number 11 crew. Denny Hamlin significantly battered after a battle he had with Joey Logano, in which case it was Kyle Busch who came away with the victory. So this is a dangerous circuit, but when we talk about the dangers in sim racing, it really just comes down to whether or not you snap your hand on your direct drive wheel. The speeds are what it's all about, and these Gen 4s are unrestricted. We've got ourselves putting the full horsepower in, north of 650, and as a result, cornering speeds are going to be slow, but we make it all the way up on those straightaways. And cornering speeds are going to get slower as the night goes on, in large part due to tire. Looking further back, Galen Gidman going to be going at it with Jacob Fife. Fife looking for a good night to back up another top 5 run. The last 2 races in the Ignite Series, Jacob Fife, his average finish, it has been 2.5, so he's been a wonderful driver in the past few races in that playoff chase. In the Octane Series, well, he's been solid, but nothing to note, and that's unfortunately going to be working against him, because right now, Fife comes in tied for the 7th seed with Nicholas Ward and Sam Nieto. Nick Ward is not with us tonight. He will fall back to 10th and last. Although, of course, it's now going to be a race between 9 drivers, it does not mean that the buffer gets pushed up any higher or any lower here. You still got to race your peers like every position and every point matters, because they're all racing against Ethan Lane as well. Even if Ethan's not going for the championship, he surely understands what he's going for, and that is going to be another race win. So maybe someone can steal that win away from him. Nick Tarbuck is the exact same spot he was in last night at Iowa. And when we talk about Fife's run, we've also got to talk about Tarbuck. Nick was only in 2 positions the entire night, 2nd and 1st. He was 2nd for the first 60 laps. He was the race leader for the final 90. And so he knows what it's like to stay up there and remain up there, of course, from the jump while also gaining position. Although it looks like right now Tom Wetmore might be the man to gain a spot. The 51 all of a sudden puts some pressure and looks up to the ceiling. And with him is going to be Nick Tarbuck right down low. Nick has no choice right now but to remain in that position. And just like that, the 51's got a little bit more momentum, and he comes out careening through the middle of the corner, just like that. Tom Wetmore up to 2nd, still chasing his first victory, the 5-time series winner, still looking for number 6, and it's been a quest ever since last year in Bristol. So it's been a long time since then, more than a year since Tom Wetmore's found victory lane in the Octane Series, and it is a drought that has been somewhat dreadful for the 51 crew. Wetmore comes in as the 6th seed, 1 point under Don Stevenson. Overall, his season has been solid, but nothing all too remarkable. 9 top 5s and 14 top 10s, which those numbers are not the lowest of the entire field. However, it doesn't tell the complete story, because a driver who has lower numbers is right ahead of him, Brad Patton, but you have to remember that Patton did not take qualifying runs until 3 weeks ago. He started from the back of the field in each and every race. He started outside of the top 20 for almost every event, and nevertheless, he came away with 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s, also 4 stage wins. So even though Patton might have had a disadvantage early on in the campaign, Tom Wetmore had no such disadvantage. Wetmore's only gotten himself 2 stage wins so far, so at that halfway marker, he hasn't been the most successful at maximizing opportunity, and hoping to settle for a top 10 sometimes can actually lose a driver some points rather than anything else. As it stands, 11 laps in out of 100. Tom Wetmore third, Nick Tarbuck fourth. You can see Nick now going to be falling back. All of a sudden, here comes Michael Araya in that number 44. You got Michael dropping down to the inside, and we of course have to remind you, he started in 8th tonight. For Araya, that's not really the best of starting positions. He is more accustomed to being up there in the top 5. Nevertheless, he's now up inside of that 4th position, and it looks like he's only going to be on the way up here as he gets even closer to Tom Wetmore. Wetmore going to have to look further back in that rearview mirror. Take a look off the deck lid right now for the 51. Michael Araya right behind. Just a car length to spare right now for the 51 of Wetmore. All the while, Nick Tarbuck is going to drop down in deep. Here comes the number 4, cutting it side by side. With them is going to be Ross Cato and Cody Smith alike. And you're starting to see that hornet's nest develop, although not a high quantity of drivers. It's all about the talent level, and most everyone here is even. Cody Smith in 7th. Ross Cato is in 6th. Cato is a driver who desperately needs a good run tonight. Ross coming in, and when it comes to the seating, he is 10th and last. Not in the best position right now. Unfortunately, for his sake, he's just got to keep on going, but he is in a talent pool that is at the absolute max. The best drivers, they remain. So now it's going to become even trickier to find that way through if you don't have the pace. But Ross Cato is doing a pretty good job. He's up to 4th, and it's gained 2 spots on this lap. So we talked about how tricky it is, but he's defying the odds and making it work out. Ross Cato up to 4th, and right now that's a huge position for him to be in. Coming from the bottom up, he's going to be from 10th seed, getting a top 5. It's a very good position to be in here, and it looks like he is only going to be gaining as the night progresses, if, of course, he can just keep that same level of pace. Tire wear is going to be critical, and we are expecting tonight that strategy will go one of 2 ways. You've got the safe strategy, which is the 2-stop strategy. Some drivers you're looking at right here might decide to go for it. Question becomes, which of them will? I think right now everyone's going to have their sights set on fuel saving, so that's why the racing hasn't been all too aggressive. That being said, some drivers like Jacob Fife last night had a chance to go for and contemplated a 2-stopper. He decided not to go for it. Don Stevenson, you do remember, was one of those who went in very early, as did Kyle Cooper. So the difference between going into pit road once and twice is major as the night progresses. Very few drivers are able to thrive. If the 1-stop strategy is the winner, you cannot rely on the 2-stop strategy. And so 50-lap stints might be the way to go tonight. Ross Cato right now in the number 12, Michael Araya in 3rd, both of which now going to be battling for the placements inside the podium. First and foremost now, drop it to the inside. Brad Patton with a major block there on Araya. Brad up into 2nd from 12th. He's the hard charger already. Even though tonight he did put down a qualifying time, he did not put down the best of them, especially since we know how quick Brad Patton is. Looking pretty solid so far. It's that number 7 up and ahead, although it looks like now some pressure being placed by Michael Araya once more. Patton looking for another run where, of course, he'll get a stronger finish than he did a start, but victory has eluded him all season long. Only Don Stevenson has been able to crack the safe, shall we say, and beat the big 3. Of course, it's only been one event, and that was at Atlanta in the mini SuperSpeedway configuration, but nevertheless, the field has been, of course, dominated by Ethan Lane, and to a lesser extent, Michael Araya and Nick Tarbuck combined. Matter of fact, when you put together their victories, well, Michael Araya coming in with a total of 8. Then, of course, you have Nick Tarbuck, who has 4. They've got 12 together. Ethan Lane, he has himself, of course, another 13. And, of course, you have that one and only victory from Don Stevenson there. It has been all about 3 drivers. But Brad Patton right now, giving that pressure to Michael Araya, and if you think about it, if Ethan Lane were not to be here for the next few weeks, well, this is the potential battle for the future. Lariah is still up and ahead, but he does not have a major margin. Instead, you got Brad Patton right there behind. Cody Smith is going to be in tow as well. Ross Cato, Tom Wetmore, so on and so forth, and perhaps that best of the rest battle becomes a much more realistic battle for the best of the best. The championship is going to look different, and you're going to see this as the battle rather than a major separation out in front. Nick Tarbuck is still falling a little bit further down. He finds himself now in 8th. Really not a good spot to be in here for this number 4 team. It looks like he's falling into the negatives more than anything else, but this could also be strategic. Tarbuck right now perhaps taking it in and working with the draft as opposed to doing anything else. The number 4 machine in Tarbuck is going to get back in line and let the draft take over. Let's see what happens at full course here for Nick Tarbuck. Is also Chuck Sweeting getting into play. Chuck Sweeting having perhaps one of the most underappreciated runs of last night. We shed some light on it, of course, as the night went on, but 11th place from 19th. As it stands, well, of course, Chuck Sweeting is made up of 6 positions. Last night, he already made up 8. With that being said, question becomes, can he continue to make those big improvements on strategy? He was the only driver who was able to benefit from the 2-stop strategy. Everyone else around him fell down and fell back major. However, for Chuck Sweeting, he still had the pace and was able to hang on. While all the other drivers were not able to do so, he was 1 lap down and still was able to take his time and continuously make up spot. Almost came up with a top 10 just on mastering the strategy that he had and avoiding any of the attrition. Maybe tonight Chuck Sweeting's going to find himself on the main strategy. He's gotten himself a top 10 or 2 as the season's progressed, and maybe tonight one of those many where there's not many spots to lose, so why not go out there and continue to gain? So far it looks like Sweeting has done exactly that and doing a pretty good job at it, as just ahead of him still remains Jacob Fife. Ethan Lane is out in the head by about 7/10 of a second. Michael Lariah is ahead of the rest of the field that's behind him by 7/10 of a second as well. Gaps have been marginal throughout the rest of the field, but you can see who's got the best stuff, who's got the second best stuff, and then everything else, well, it's tight from there. I mean, you got Brad Patton, you got Ross Cato, you got Tom Wetmore, all of which are going to be in this bundle, and then you got Fife, Sweeting, Galen Gidman, Nick Tarbuck, all of which are going to be alongside one another. It's going to be really tricky to figure out who's got it as the night goes on, but early on, first and foremost, you can see nearly neck and neck pace across the field. Top 5 is going to be separate now by 1.5 seconds. 23 laps in out of 100 and coming close to the halfway point in stint number 1. Some drivers might anticipate their pit road entry to be as early as lap number 33, although we're hoping that for the majority of the field who are leading here, they can stretch it a little further. TNT Music Studios and Vinex in the chat room supporting Bobby Ross tonight. As it stands, it looks like it's going to be Bobby who finds himself in the 14th position, just a little bit further behind that third pack ahead of him, and he's running there in lead lap 5.5 seconds back on your race leader. Sam Nieto might be falling into the clutches of Bobby Ross right now. That time by a 41.9 for Nieto. Not a good lap compared to the rest of the field who's leading ahead. He's about a 1/10.5 back each and every lap by. So Sam needs to find a way to improve. In addition, we're talking about Tom Wetmore, who's up at the head of the field many a time as he led a ton of laps. Nancy Wetmore in the chat room, of course, explaining that Tom Wetmore has seen it all. He's seen almost every way to lose so far this season, and last year he saw most every way to win. Now there's a chance, of course, to go out there and win again and putting that winless streak to rest. All honesty, early prediction, based on what we're seeing right now with the championship picture, I would not be surprised if, at last, Tom Wetmore wins in this round. I don't quite know about this race, though. Already, it looks like Ethan Lane is getting up and ahead, and really, nobody seems to have a way to stop Ethan Lane when he gets that track position. The only thing that's been stopping Ethan Lane this season, since the very beginning, has been himself. And I think right now, after all these weeks that we've had, after all these months, he's finally put those troubles away of stopping himself, and instead now is going to be in his own terms, leading the way and putting the power down week in and week out, and it looks like he has not been misstepping ever since. The last incident he got involved in was Indianapolis. He and Michael Lariah were battling for the race to win. Lariah making contact with Ethan Lane and sending the 54 straight down the track. It prematurely ended his race, and unfortunately for Ethan Lane, he was not able to continue his streak of victories, although, I'm sure for Michael Lariah's sake, although it was a crushing blow in the battle, it didn't necessarily spell doom for the 44, who also was involved in the wreck. He ended up going out there and collecting the victory as a result. Cody Smith going to be third right now. He's the final driver inside the podium. You got Ross Cato in fourth, just beyond his confines. Cody Smith looking for a podium here, and maybe he'll be the first man to play spoiler. Right now, of course, for Smith, he's not going to be involved in either the Ignite Series or Octane Series championship, so his role in these races is going to be a little bit different. He's still, of course, fully allowed and incentivized to go out there and fight for victory. However, right now, he's got Ross Cato breathing down his neck, who needs these championship points. Just like so, Ross Cato going to make it a side-by-side fight, although briefly, with Cody Smith. Now Ross is going to drop down a little bit lower, and still goes the number 18 of Cody Smith just ahead. Tom Wetmore going to be in the back of the frame, and maybe now Wetmore is going to put the pressure down on Cato rather than Ross Cato doing so to the number 18. It's going to be a slide job, and for Tom Wetmore, does not work out. Here comes Brad Patton, and it might be a 2-for-1 pass on number 51. Unbelievable here to see Brad Patton getting back in the mix, and it looks like already the 7 going to be shot out like a cannon through 1 and 2, and he will carry that momentum once again. Here they go, 3 wide, bottom side of Wetmore, top side Ross Cato. Brad Patton is going to have to give, and so the 12 gets away. Now it's going to be toe-to-toe again between 51 and 7, Brad Patton and Cato alike. Now it looks like just ahead, Michael Lariah sliding ever so slightly, but he puts himself back together. Not going to be anything all too concerning. Right now, Michael Lariah still exceptional with that car control, and he's going to put himself back in without a problem. Cody Smith trying to get ahead of Ross Cato and Brad Patton alike. Looks like Cody's actually been able to break out of some 0.3 of a second advantage. Although that time by, Ross Cato going to be slowed down. He's got that clean air once again. Let's see what he can do here. Patton in the number 7 anyway. Looks like he's now just within the confines of making the pass on Ross Cato. That time through, Brad was a 1/10 of a second quicker than Ross, and it looks like Ross was a 1/10 of a second quicker than Cody Smith. Toe-to-toe now between 3 drivers who are all closing in on one another. Ross Cato is going to drop right down low. Up top is going to be the number 7 of Brad Patton, and it looks like at last Brad Patton makes the move and collects the position. Nick Tarbuck is still watching. We mentioned that he went all the way down to 8th place. That's where he is right now, but it looks like he's slowly but surely building up that speed and that position to go out there and pass once again. Perhaps lying back was the strategic play in mind, and so far for Nick Tarbuck has kept him just within the confines of the leading group. Michael Lariah has gotten a 0.5 of a second closer to Ethan Lane, although Cody Smith has been able to half the distance between he and the number 44. Looks like this second pack a little bit more effective than Michael Lariah in maintaining and extending his gap. So, a little bit of a different approach right now, held by the number 18 of Cody Smith. Getting closer and closer and leaving the rest of the pack behind. Saying goodbye to the Hornet's Nest and trying to move on to the big picture. Michael Lariah might have to look back here, although at the same time, he's also now catching up to Ethan Lane. Let's take a look on board here with the number 44 and see what's going on. Down the back straightaway, gap is now going to be 4.5 tenths of a second, and somewhat decreasing. It looks like now Michael Araya putting in consistent laps faster than that of the number 54. Ethan Lane right now, really little else he can do besides look back in the mirror and maybe contemplate what's next. Although I think for both drivers here, they understand what's next. It's a trip to pit road. This isn't really going to be the be-all, end-all here, but you do not want to lose position early. Of course, earlier than you have to. Ethan Lane right now, finding himself in first, has got himself that advantage from the jump. But all of a second, of course, second place has been making those moves. And it looks like now Ethan Lane might be wearing himself out just a little bit more so than anyone else. Clean air usually is an advantage, but perhaps pulling away is now going to be coming right back at him. 33 laps in, out of 100. Look back to Cody Smith there in third, Tom Wetmore in fourth, Ross Cato in pit road. Now the two-stop strategy comes into play. First and foremost, Ross Cato. Then you got Bobby Ross, both of which coming in together. There's Galen Gidman. The number 9 comes through. So now you see strategy playing out. First two drivers to come in. Interestingly enough, Ross Cato, a title contender and a top 5 runner, he's going to decide to make the move in as well. So he's going to make a very much different call from those around him. Ross Cato drops in, and the rest of the field, not yet. Tom Wetmore, though, looks like he's coming in this time by, as is Alan Rawell. So more drivers come in. Two-stop strategy looks to be the winner tonight. Tom Wetmore with Jacob Fife, Nick Tarbuck, Cody Smith, all of which are going to come down in one bundle, and it looks like the one-stopper will not be feasible. So pit road gets busy for the first time. The number 18 of Smith is going to have that track position, and Ethan Lane, Michael Araya will stay out. They're going to be fighting against one another to go at each other, and that's going to be Lane and Araya looking for P1 overall, while the rest of the pack is going to come in. Here's Tom Wetmore. He's going to make his stall, although he has to back up slightly. There's Cody Smith, Nick Tarbuck also right there through. Now, with the two-stopper being solidified as the strategy to go for, Ethan Lane will get advantage into pit road. Sliding, and he's going to smoke up the tires significantly. Let's see if that's going to be a penalty, although it does look like he made it in safely. Michael Araya is going to be side by side with him now on the way into pit road. And one has to give. Whether or not it will be Michael Araya nor Ethan Lane, it looks like the advantage will be with Michael Araya. He cuts in first, and then with is going to be Ethan Lane dropping down and in. Let's watch the battle between first and second here on the way out. Michael Araya is going to just come in, and so there's John Steele on the way in the number 22. Most of the pack is already going to be rounding the back straightaway into turns 3 and 4 here. You'll see some of which already making their way out. Lane going to have the edge even still over Michael Araya, and now the battle for the lead is going to see Sam Nieto as the overall race leader, and then behind you're going to have Ethan Lane getting passed by Ross Cato. Now Ross is going to find himself the net race leader based on strategy. Big move for Ross Cato, and he's going to go for an early aggressive tactic. Maybe not going to be aggressive racing, but this is a huge strategy move. Just a lap or two makes all the difference for Ross, who now has himself back up to racing speed significantly quicker than all those around him, and we'll see whether or not he can keep that advantage, because already you'll see a feisty Ethan Lane trying to take some spots from the likes of Galen Gidman and Brad Patton. Patton gets close, couldn't quite get ahead, and now Ethan Lane is going to have to settle and get himself locked in once again to make some moves. Hasn't been an easy night so far for Ethan Lane, but that's largely because he's been pushing himself out there. He's been so much quicker than the majority of the field, he might have had to pace himself, and with that being said, it looks like eventually he came down to earth. Michael Araya was getting closer, couldn't quite seal the deal, although now Ethan Lane is already going to be getting back into position where he's speeding through like he's on rails. Up to fourth, got by Galen Gidman, solidified his lead over Brad Patton. Up next, it's going to be Cody Smith and Ross Cato, who are ahead now by 2 seconds. That time by, Ethan Lane was quicker, not by a significant amount, only a few 100ths of a second. The tire fall off will determine, of course, who's who in this run. 18 machine of Cody Smith, 12 of Ross Cato, first and second here with Ethan Lane, of course, now leading this train. If you take a look on board with Tom Wetmore, he's getting himself in the mix as well. He just got by Jacob Fife, and here comes the move on Galen Gidman. Brad Patton holding his own right now for the Wanted Goons team. None of his teammates with us says it's been all season long, but he's held himself as an individual at, of course, the top of the league. For Tom Wetmore, his teammates are in this race, Roadhouse Racing. However, they're going to be significantly further back in the field. Notably, John Steele is going to be in 16th here tonight. So while Wetmore doesn't have any assistance up in front, he does find himself perhaps playing the team game with a notebook. All the while, Galen Gidman running with Sam Nieto and number 44, Michael Araya. That's one big organization you got to keep track of. Sam Nieto, the veteran of this series, is struggling though. He finds himself all the way down in 13th. So not the best place to be as it stands, of course, but he's got his teammate Michael Araya looking all the way back up in front. For Araya, though, he's in 9th, and he's going to have to carve his way through. Ethan Lane, all the while, finds himself up into 3rd. That's the difference between a second or two on pit road. Not even a second that you find through a better pit stop or a quicker one, but just your way in and way out. Michael Araya going to assimilate a little bit further back, and so he's going to lose 6 positions relative to the man he's competing against in Ethan Lane. Lane with a major advantage. 40 laps in out of 100 here, and Ethan Lane is going to be clawing back into the number 18 and the number 12 of Cato and Cody Smith alike. So far, though, Ross Cato is still going to hold a lead of some 2 seconds over the likes of Cody Smith and company. Ethan Lane is still going to be slowly but surely making gains, yes, but it's still within the less than a half a tenth, only 4 100ths of a second quicker that time by a gap which is only expressed by maybe 100 feet. 150 at the very most. It's not a huge gain, but again, those small gains are compound lap after lap. If he gains at that same rate for some 30 plus laps, well, I figure that he's going to go all the way and get right up there. Right now, Ethan Lane is going to make that gap go a little bit shorter, maybe 5 100ths of a second, trying to keep an eye on the numbers, but the numbers don't tell us all too much. He was a 10th quicker overall, but that was quicker than Cody Smith and Ross Cato alike. You have to acknowledge there's a little bit of a buffer between Smith and Ross Cato, and of course it's the air, but for Ethan Lane and Ross Cato, he's got the roadblock and Cody Smith to deal with. The question becomes, of course, whether or not that number 18 is going to bow down easy, or of course if he's going to give Ethan Lane a fight. That might give a few laps of buffer to Ross Cato, and more importantly, it might wear out Ethan Lane's tires a little bit more so for the drivers behind. Michael Araya is still cutting through, and as you see him now in the back of the frame, the number 44 is just taking the spot of Nick Tarbuck. It looks like a tale of two opposite races. While Nick Tarbuck started off very, very strong, that number 9 spot, well, he has it right now, coming from 2nd on the grid. Meanwhile, Michael Araya started in 8th and was running as high as 2nd, so it looks like these two are running almost the complete opposite when it comes to their pace. Yes, of course, that number 44 team started on the weaker side, and well, Nick Tarbuck definitely started stronger, but right now you're seeing the race pace is significantly different than qualifying. If you can hold your own for 30 plus laps, it's much more important in the racing setting than being fast for one lap and falling out of favor. Although I don't think Nick Tarbuck is necessarily done for right now, he definitely does not have the rapid fire approach that is necessary for a long run compared to, of course, what he did. He did very well in qualifying. Galen Gidman 7th, Jacob Fife 6th, Tom Wetmore in P5. 4th place right now, still going to be Brad Patton, and having a day for him that has been very, very solid. You know, we're going to come back from our halfway break in just a few laps time. We're going to go through a full playoff profile between the 10 drivers that still remain. Brad Patton, he's had a very interesting season, one that is remarkably different from that of 2023, and the gains he's made are on a level that is unparalleled by anyone. The majority of your top 10 is all racing veterans here from the Integrity OCTANE Series. When we go down the list, there's only one rookie in the playoffs remaining. That is Michael Lariah. So, of all the drivers that are still fighting for the title, all of them were here in 2023 except for one. And it's interesting to say that Michael Lariah is the one and only who missed the first full year because he's been, by and large, the second best driver in the entire season. And Ethan Lane also missed the majority of that season. He only got one win and only made less than 5 starts. So, interestingly enough, the drivers with less experience last year have been the best this year, and they've been completely above the bar all throughout the campaign. Ethan Lane is 1.6 seconds back now on Ross Cato. The gaps are still marginal, and it looks like Ross Cato, for now anyway, made a huge positive by taking that risk. Undercut, and a slight one at that, brought him up to the front of the field, and it looks like that's the place he is due to stay. 46 laps in out of 100, coming down to lap number 47. Still right behind is Cody Smith, and the gap between these two drivers is going to be 37 100ths of a second. 54 of Lane still remains a second behind here. As it stands, Cody Smith is having one of his best races this season, and he's playing the role of a spoiler. He's perhaps the best spoiler all season long, and he did so in 2023. You might remember he and Nick Tarbuck going toe-to-toe for a victory in Kentucky, and that was while Cody was not championship eligible. Nevertheless, he's a driver who's known to give it his all. He's 11th in the championship standings with 3 top 5s and 16 top 10s. Interestingly, Cody Smith, he's been consistent, and it looks like that might actually lead to his detriment. A top 10 he's been able to work over time and time again, but the top 5s have been elusive for this team. He's had strong qualifying runs, he's had good race pace, but it looks like no matter where we are, no matter what the time is, Cody Smith somehow finds a way to finish 6th through 10th, almost never ahead. So now he's getting right behind Ross Cato. Maybe a chance for Cody Smith to briefly make it up into that leading position. Quarter of a second gap between he and Ross Cato. And Cody has been maybe slightly quicker over the last few laps, about 1/10 of a second faster now. Meanwhile, Ethan Lane just pulled a half second over the number 12. So with that being said, the 54 now is going to be on the move. Back straightaway going to be running the 54 of Lane, ahead now Tom Wetmore by a half second as well. Let's see now what Tom Wetmore can do back up into 4th. He started 3rd tonight. A podium would be major, but I'm sure that he wants to get back to victory lane. At this point, this 51 team, they've waited far too long for their standards, but tonight, they've still got to get back ahead of Ethan Lane. Only 2 drivers now are leading Lane, and both of which still look to be slower. Nobody's been able to find that average pace for the more than 5 or 6 laps to match or best them, and Ethan Lane now is going to take it up to the high side of the circuit. We haven't mentioned yet so far tonight the weather conditions here in Fontana, California. Well, let's start talking about that. Track temperature right now coming in at 88 degrees Fahrenheit, and for California standards, pretty warm. Or rather, pretty cool. Not necessarily cool by anyone else's standards, but California, well, it's not burning today, and that's a positive here on the racing circuit. 75-degree ambient temperature means that the conditions are very, very fair for the entirety of the field, and it looks like winds are going to be westbound at 9 miles an hour. Relative humidity coming in at 41%, so in all honesty, drivers have little to worry about when it comes to condition, and the track condition will change as the night goes on. We are expecting maybe a little bit more warmth as the night continues on for 10 or 15 longer laps, and then the tail end of the race, you will see track temperature and ambient temperature continue to decrease, and with that, you might see a little bit more longevity and performance out of the tire, something that I think Ross Cato and Cody Smith alike desperately need. While they're going side by side for the race lead, here comes the number 54 of Ethan Lane. He's cut the gap now at only 0.3 of a second, and he's had to make it back 1.5 seconds plus in the past 15 laps. Top 3 drivers all the way up high. So far, so good for the 54 team, and he's looking to once again redeem that top position as he's had it all night long. Dropping to the inside line, it's going to be now that Cobalt II Chevrolet looking for a win at number 14. He'll have to get the lead back to make it there, and that he did. Lane back up and advantageous, but he'll get split 3 wide. Ross Cato with prevailing momentum up on the top side will take the lead once again. It's almost a failed slide job for Lane, but as you can see now, the new tire gonna back him down. But very briefly, he's already back in line to go and try to take a spot. Side by side, 54. There goes Ethan Lane again. He's got Ross Cato loose on the higher groove, and now it looks to be the nail in the coffin. Here comes Ethan Lane with 48 laps to go in the Jimmy Johnson paint scheme at the track where he won his first ever race in the NASCAR Cup Series, Fontana, in 2002. 22 years on, Lane has been dominant in the Integrity OCTANE Series. 13 wins, and now going for his 14th. 47 laps to go. Ethan Lane leading with Ross Cato in second, Cody Smith in third. Fourth place is Tom Wetmore. P5 is going to be Brad Patton, and Michael Araya is in sixth, with Jacob Fife seventh, Nick Tarbuck eighth and ninth, Chuck Sweeting, Galen Gidman, the final driver inside of the top 10. Currently running right now inside the podium, Cody Smith is going to be running with, of course, support from Next Level Racing. With that being said, our, of course, league ambassador is providing the championship prize every driver is going for in the Next Level chase for the championship. $2,000 sim rig courtesy of Next Level Racing for both the Integrity Ignite and Octane Series champions. And in only a few weeks' time, we'll find out who those champions will be. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional information about the sim racing world's most reliable, highest quality hardware provider, and we will return right after this. .45 laps remaining and still counting down. We're about 2/3 the way through this second stint, and right now, still Michael Araya having some struggles climbing. You're watching live coverage here of the California Coast 200, and it looks like, for the time being, Michael Araya has not been able to get back to those successful ways of stint number 1. He's still getting up there in the battle for the top 5, but we would have expected for Araya that he would be beyond the getting up stage by this point. Not necessarily the case, though. The Sim Speed Shop number 44 hasn't had the best of luck in making the last few moves he's intended to go for, and so he's going to try again here with Brad Patton. Goes low, arcs up high, and here comes the 5th place driver, the number 7 of Brad Patton, looking low on Tom Wetmore as well. Don't be surprised if you perhaps see a little bit more aggression out of some of these drivers, although we're going to take that with a grain of salt because, again, we've been caution-free for 58 laps here. Honestly, if we are going to see aggressive racing, I'm sure we would have seen it already. And that's the one thing about the Integrity Racing League as a whole. Last night, we went caution-free for 150 laps at a short track. Now we're looking to go another 100 laps caution-free at one of our big circuits. So it's the versatility that also matters, and so far these drivers in both series have proven time and again they can handle the challenge no matter what it may be or where it may be. But Well, we got to talk about the championships here. If there's any incentive to be aggressive right now, the number one incentive is on the line, and that is the championship picture. Let's go from top to bottom in the playoff standings right now and give you a refresh on who's who and why they're here. There's no question that Ethan Lane would deserve to win a championship if, of course, he went through the entire season. However, unfortunately for him, well, it's not going to be possible. 13 wins and looking for his 14th and final tonight. Lane has been the epitome of consistency. He got over a rough patch to start the season, but he has been top dog, and if he wins tonight, it will be his 7th win in the last 10 races. 13 wins already recorded, 16 top 5s, and 17 top 10s. He's here for a reason, and he currently leads the championship race, and he would come out of this event as, even still, the championship leader with a technical lock to make it into the final 5. However, given the circumstance, that final 5 lock will be revoked, and he will not have a chance to race for the championship because he will be competing in NASCAR Contender Series action in his quest to join the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Then you have Michael Araya, who, if of course he finishes where he is today, will usurp the overall championship lead. However, he will not lock himself in even if Ethan Lane is to win tonight. Michael right now finds himself 28 points above the bubble. A very comfortable spot to be in, yes, but it is not a mathematical lock just yet. A good run from him will put him all the way into effective lock. As long as he just shows up, he'll make it in, but it's not going to be a full guarantee yet. For the 7-time race winner, 21 top 5s and 25 top 10s. He's got the most top 10s of anyone in this series. He's only missed 1 top 10 since the start of the season, and that was, if you remember, all the way back in the very first 5 races of the campaign. Since then, he has been a top 10 machine with no exception. He's been remarkably consistent, and if not Ethan Lane, Michael Araya might just be the title favorite. Then you gotta look back to 3rd place in the championship standings, the last man in the big 3, 20 top 10s, but 18 top 5s to go with it, and then of course, 4 victories. Nick Tarbuck is the last of 3 drivers with multiple wins this season, and he has been remarkably consistent in both series. He is the only championship contender in the Big 3 rank that has a chance to win the Ignite and Octane Series championship. While much more successful on Tuesday nights, Nick already has himself a championship spot locked in on the Ignite Series. It honestly looks like for the number 4 machine of Nick Tarbuck, he's got himself a real good position to go for 2 championships, but he needs to do well in the next 2 races. He only finds himself 12 above the bubble. Then you get into the drivers who are really close to each other. Brad Patton, who is having himself a night. He's 4 points up and comes in 4th. He has not yet won this season. He only has himself 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s, but he's been playing the Octane Series on hard mode all year long. No qualifying until the playoffs began, and those results that he's gotten have been impressive given the fact that he's had to come through 30-car field for the majority of the season just to get there. Now, of course, things are a little bit different. The field sizes have cut down, and he's been giving himself the chance to go for qualifying, but Brad Patton has been bad fast. Now, he's got the ability to show it fully, and so far in that opening round, he put himself up inside the top 5 in points, just where he needs to be. Don Stevenson is the worst performing driver today of all playoff drivers. However, he's still the driver who cracked the safe and got a victory in the Big 3 era in the playoffs, and he's the first driver to do so. He won in Atlanta, and that's the reason he's here today. He made his way up to the 5th seed. He finds himself exactly on the bubble. His statistics have been status quo for all those who made it in. 6 top 5s and 18 top 10s, so maybe not the most impressive numbers by any means, but Stevenson has one thing a lot of these drivers can't say they have: a race win. He knows what it's like to get to the checkered flag, and he knows how he did it. That experience will prove crucial as the nights go on in the final few races. We got Tom Wetmore, who is an accomplished driver in this series, and as it stands, he is the 4th winningest driver of all time in the Integrity OCTANE Series, standing right behind the likes of Seth Noel. Ross Cato, of course, he finds himself ahead of. Only 2 drivers who are significantly ahead of him, Michael Araya and Ethan Lane. Wetmore is already one of the most equipped, most accomplished drivers in this series, but he has not yet been able to find victory lane either. So far, his statistics have been solid. 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s in only 20 races run. So keep in mind that of all drivers who have made it to this point today, he and Brad Patton have run the fewest races. So their statistics might not be as impressive, however, still solid given all the circumstances that come around them. For Tom Wetmore, 70% top 10 rate and nearly a 50% top 5 rate. If you want to give some justification to the numbers, Tom Wetmore's rate statistics are higher than half of the field that are still eligible for the title. So with that being said, if the averages are proven to be true, Tom Wetmore will make it into the final 5 as he did almost last year. Wetmore was just not able to complete the championship run as he faltered in that penultimate round. Then from there you got 7th place in Jacob Fife, the league owner and a multi-time winner, looking for another chance, but it's been since 2023, much like Wetmore when he last went to victory lane. Jacob, with now 9 top 5s and 20 top 10s in 25 races, has been very, very consistent in getting to that point of the top 10, but getting up to the upper echelon has been even harder. Fife has been proving as of late in the Ignite series that he is a versatile driver, maybe a little bit more versatile than we'd predict, but the Gen 4 cars, unlike the next gens or the Xfinity cars, maybe not coming into his liking, still adapting perhaps, but right now that learning game has to be out of sight and out of mind if you want any realistic chance to go the distance here. For Jacob Fife, he finds himself a total of 2 points under the bubble, and he's tied with 2 other drivers. Sam Nieto, first and foremost, who has also been struggling today, and right now that number 2 machine, he's not doing the best. He's going to fall back very far if this is where he finishes. He has himself a total of 9 top 5s and 12 top 10s, almost the exact same numbers as Jacob Fife. And like Jacob Fife, same winless drought. He's been waiting for a year plus. It's almost the same song, Second Dance, when you look at these drivers on the surface. Nieto's been strong in qualifying. His weakness, as you see tonight, it's been that race pace, and now drivers are heading down to pit road, and the last of which we'd like to mention in this 3-way tie, Nicholas Ward, who's not with us. He only has 4 top 5s. He's going to have a huge struggle to make it from here to the end of the championship, as now pit road gets busy. Among others, Nick Tarbuck, Tom Wetmore, Cody Smith, and Bobby Terrell involved in this route down to pit road. Chuck Sweeting just made it in, and additionally 10th and last seed coming through, Ross Cato, who went down to pit road earlier than all else. He's going to replicate that undercut strategy and head out of pit road again ahead of everyone around him. Ross Cato is coming in as the 10th and last seed and needs to succeed tonight. A podium in the top 5 are absolutely necessary for a driver who right now finds himself 3 points under the bubble. 3 points is going to stretch out big though, because if everyone else around you gets a good points day and you don't, you're all but done for. 3 more drivers just went down and in. Michael Araya, Jacob Fife, and Bobby Ross, all of which have just dropped down a pit road together. Here comes Bobby coming alongside Jacob Fife, and as soon as Ross gets in, Fife gets on the way. Michael Orion getting out just ahead in that number 44. Let's see what Ethan Lane does as he just dropped into pit road. He'll bring Sam Nieto with him, and it looks like now, for the time being, they're only going to leave one driver, Randy Fiash, out on track. The 55 is a non-factor in the championship. Nevertheless, it looks like right now that number 55 has himself maybe a lap or so at the very most, and I think he's going to concede here and now. You can see him slow through turns 3 and 4. No reason to risk it, and so the 55 will concede, and he will give away that leading spot. Ethan Lane is going to be on pit road right now. He's going to hit the gas pedal heavy. Coming alongside him will be Ross Cato, and so once again, briefly, the number 12 takes the race lead. He's gotten multiple laps led on bonus points, and here we go again. That number 12 machine is advantageous. Second place is going to be Tom Wetmore, tentatively speaking. Then you got third and Brad Patton, and Nick Tarbuck is back up in the fray. You might remember Indianapolis, where he was very quiet and very calm throughout the first half of the race, and even the first 3 quarters, then came alive for a podium at the very end. It's the exact same situation perhaps playing out tonight. Nick is going to be up into 4th, and now with some younger tire, he actually has the youngest of all drivers inside the top 5. He might be able to use it here to his advantage. 29 laps to go this time by. We'd like to once again thank Next Level Racing for their continued support live on FTN as the premier partner of the Integrity Racing League. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional info, and of course we hope you support them and use promo code INTEGRITY at checkout for 10% off all hardware items on their website. We'll be back after this. You're watching the California Coast 200 live on FTN, and we'll return after the next message is coming from our friends at Next Level Racing. 27 laps remaining. It is Ross Cato up and away. With them, you got Tom Wetmore, Brad Patton in third, Nick Tarbuck in fourth, Michael Araya fifth. Up to the high side of the circuit, Araya will go now with Ethan Lane, and maybe the chase is on now for the 54. He finds himself mired back in traffic for the first time tonight. Now the question becomes, what can Michael Araya do with this advantage? He has not found himself ahead of Ethan Lane all race long. Things are different now. Maybe a question right now, of course, for Ethan Lane is, does he push it hard, or does he expect to naturally make that way up there and make those positions just by virtue of tire? Looks like right now he's in a similar position to where Michael Araya was on that last stint, in which old tire might not be an advantage, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge track position is even more important. And critically speaking right now for Ethan Lane, every position matters just to go for a victory, but the championship really is not in mind. Maybe that's going to involve, of course, going a little bit more aggressive right now, knowing that fact, or he'll lay off. But right now, I don't think it's in Ethan Lane's nature to lay off a chance at victory, and you can see him taking at 3. Michael Araya up top, Brad Patton right down low, and Ethan Lane going to get up into third just like that. 2.5 to make up here to get back to Ross Cato, and Ross might have to look through that rearview mirror sooner than later. Not only does he have Tom Wetmore, who has 1 lap younger tire, but Ethan Lane with 3 lap younger rubber. It looks like right now Ethan Lane has the advantage over all others on the track for another chance at victory, which of course would be his 14th and last on the season if he is to succeed. Lane is getting that rubbered in on the high side. Michael Araya coming right through as well, and it looks like Araya's intention is to finish all the way up front, just where he started. With that, it's going to be Nick Tarbuck coming through, and might just be a big 3 podium. Once again, perhaps the most predictable outcome in the book. 1, 2, 3, Lane, Araya, Tarbuck. And how many times have we seen them in that order again and again and again? In all honesty, the question becomes whether or not, of course, these drivers are getting tired of it. I think for Nick Tarbuck, of course, he's getting tired of not winning. For Michael Araya, I think he's now getting tired of just coming away with good points nights. It's going to look a lot different right now, of course, with 24 laps to go than it will in a week or two's time, in which Araya and Tarbuck will have the field in their domain. With 23 laps to go now, we've got 1 more lap until we crank it up once again. Auto Club Speedway is brought alive by the best cameras on iRacing at Track Cams for Gourmets. The best broadcasters pick the best camera providers, and with over 100 cars and tracks collected, and of course given full camera packs, TrackCams22.com is the one-stop shop trusted broadcasters use for the best angles in all of virtual motorsport. Visit Facebook.com/TrackCams or TrackCams22.com for more information, as we are going to crank it up once again and get live and loud with 22 laps to go, courtesy of our friends at Track Cams for Gourmets. Ethan Lane, with now only 17 laps to go, finds himself with a lead very familiar as Ross Cato runs in second. Cato's big gamble is going to be perhaps the most important moment of the night to keep track of. He comes in as the 10th and last seed and might exit above the cut line, which is a huge deal for that 12 crew who knows all too well what it means to go down to the last race unsure if he'll go on to the next round and fight for a championship. Second place in the points last season has proven once again, and maybe he's still got it in him to fight and go for the checkered flag as he's done many a time before. He's only got one career win, but I think the numbers have shown that Ross Cato still has racing winning speed in him, even if he has not succeeded thus far at getting a win. So many drivers feel like they are due for a race win. I think that's the interesting part that we've mentioned many times with how good Lane has been, with how good Lariah has been, with how good Nick Tarbuck has been. We oftentimes think, oh, this driver is very much due for a winner, that another driver is due for a victory. And in all honesty, if it was any other season, maybe they would have already gotten one. But these drivers are playing not only by the rules, but they're playing with the field. And it is a field that has been unmerciful. Success has been, of course, the number one driving force. And for all those drivers who are pushing race in, race out, if you just find a way to have that advantage on the track, you're going to use it. And right now, that number 44, Michael Araya, is doing just that. Side by side between he and Ross Cato, looking low to the inside goes to 44. Ross Cato, he's still got himself on the high, and I really don't think there's much else he can do besides wait and watch. Toe-to-toe now, coming out of turns 3 and 4, 15 laps to go, coming into 14. Side-by-side briefly was also Nick Tarbuck and Tom Wetmore. The advantage looks to be in favor of Nick Tarbuck, maybe by a tenth and a half each and every lap here. Up high, it's going to be that number 4, and as you can see now, running up to the ceiling, maybe trying to save some rubber. It might just be the final step that Tom Wetmore has to defend, as all the while, Michael Araya comes down the back straightaway at north of 190 miles an hour, and at long last, it looks like he's going to put this discussion to rest. He's in second, Ross Cato's in third, Tom Wetmore might not any longer be in fourth, because Nick Tarbuck now is going to try to take this position. 14 laps to go, coming to 13, Michael Araya. Let's take a look off the back end here, the number 44. He's got a pretty good view of the battle just behind. Ross Cato going to dive through turns 3 and 4, couldn't quite get there. Looks like Tom Wetmore's not done defending either. Here comes Nick Tarbuck, and it looks like the number 4, this time around, of course, hoping not to fail. He's going to let Tom Wetmore maybe dive a little bit deeper. You could see almost visibly slowing down the number 4 did in turn 1. Attitude, though, definitely going to be preferential with momentum. Coming through, here goes the number 4 Chevrolet, and Wetmore, while still in the top 5, is going to lose a spot rather quickly to the hands of Nick Tarbuck in the 4. I don't know yet, based on the speed, based on the numbers, whether or not it's a sure thing that Ross Cato and Nick Tarbuck will end up going at each other, let alone if Nick Tarbuck will even get to pass Ross Cato. I think now that Ross is in a good enough position where he might actually be able to come away with the advantage in this battle with only 11 laps to go. The minutes are running out, time is winding down, and there's only so many laps you can really put together from now until the end of the race to cut down a certain amount of distance, and only being 6/1000ths of a second quicker does not cut it. I think now, above all else, Nick Tarbuck understands that. He's got Tom Wetmore there right behind, and it looks like it's going to be Brad Patton in 6th and Jacob Fife in 7th, both of which right now are going to be running single file. Nothing much of an active battle between the two of them as we come across the line to make it only 10 laps to go, courtesy of our friends at Next Level Racing. We'd like to thank again Next Level Racing for their continued support. Visit their website at nextlevelracing.com and use promo code Integrity at checkout for a 10% 10% total discount on your entire checkout list. Visit nextlevelracing.com. In just a few laps time, you'll have, of course, the opportunity to do so. The checkered flag is coming up very soon here on the California Coast 200, and we will return one final time after a message from Next Level Racing. Ethan Lane coming down to the single digits. He's up and ahead now with only 9 laps to go, and he's coming down to 8. Looks like no matter what lap we finish at, no matter what lap it is, it's always Ethan Lane's lucky lap. 9/10 of a second the edge between he and Michael Araya, and you would expect this, of course, of a driver who has such talent as Ethan Lane, and he's only gotten better and better over the past year, and I think you have to forget, or rather, you have to remember the fact that while forgotten the reason he dropped out, Ethan Lane was completely off of the sim for the better part of 2023. He started the campaign here, he left the sim as a whole, came back in the start of 2024, and he started here and in Road to Pro at about the same time. And so Lane has been building up that skill all over again. It's almost like muscle memory when you continue to repeat actions and races once again and again and again. And getting that seat time in the virtual realm has made Ethan Lane from a threat, as we remembered him, to a bona fide automatic win whenever he would show up. And so, well, he's become that ladder option, looking for his 14th win and what would be his 7th in the last 10 races. 7 laps to go. Michael Araya right behind, 3/4 of a second back. He's kept Ethan honest, but there's really little else you can do besides get close when it comes to that number 54. You could wait on a mistake, maybe wait on a caution. I mean, at this rate, 95 laps in when we come across the line, incredibly doubtful of which, the 51 of Wetmore, the 12 of Ross Cato, 3rd and 4th, and it looks like Ross Cato is still ahead. Of course, as you can see there, but he also isn't losing all too much time. That time around, it looked like only Tom Wetmore was quicker by some 7/100ths of a second, and while that means he would catch up, it doesn't necessarily mean he would be able to complete the pass. Nick Tarbuck is back in 5th, mind you. It looks like he was not able to consistently keep the advantage up over Tom Wetmore lap over lap, and so it's going to be the Tube Tech Chevrolet once again doing battle. In case you missed it, the gap between the leaders has been significantly shortened. Ethan Lane, it looks like, getting up into the wall in turns 3 and 4, and so now the gap is going to be 0.2 of a second. A little bit of right side shuffling for the 54 of Lane, and Michael Araya has a chance. 5 laps to go, and this race has shifted big. Now it looks like Ethan Lane, for the first time all night long, he is vulnerable. Whether or not this vulnerability will be only temporary or if it means he's going to see this race fall down the drain is still for questioning, of course. He's led north of 85 laps today, and I'm sure now he's not going to give in even if he just made one minor misstep. Up on the high side, he's got Michael Araya right there with, and this is why running up top is so risky, because if you're all the way up high there, well, it means you're going to end up banging up with the wall if you make one minor misstep or if the air pushes you one way or the other. Lane still has clean air, as you can see, but he's got to be mindful of the fact that getting pushed up there, whether voluntarily or otherwise, could be a race ender. Michael Araya still in tow as they work their way down to the back straightaway once again. Michael now with the best opportunity he's had all night long to find victory. It will be his 8th on the season, and it could almost be that passing of the torch that I can imagine Michael would want. Araya now dives low. He's within 21,000ths of a second of taking that race lead. Bottom side is going to have the lead, but only just. Now Ethan Lane gets the momentum, and he's going to burst out of the corner and come to the stripe again. 3 laps to go. 6 final miles. So what it comes down to, Racing down the back straightaway, number 44 of Michael Lariah holding fort. He got close, but does he have enough now? The gap has become a quarter of a second once again. Within the final few moments of this race, of course, Lariah has been able to cut that gap again and again and again. But it only comes down to Ethan Lane's mistakes would have done it for him. It really hasn't been anything of Michael's pace in specific. He's just been given opportunity, and he's taken advantage of it. Now we'll see if Ethan Lane gives him any room in these last moments. 2 laps to go. Ross Cato is going to get chased by not one but 2 drivers now. Nick Tarbuck and, of course, Tom Wetmore there. It looks like both of which are gaining, but not at a significant rate. If Ross Cato just hangs it up high, he should be able to finish the job without any additional troubles. We'll take our look, of course, back up to the front of the field. Gap is 15/100ths of a second. 44 machine of Michael Lariah, 54 of Ethan Lane. 2 laps to go, and it'll be coming this time by to the white flag. Michael Lariah's going to give it all he has, and you can see him digging out of turn 4. He's got speed, and now he's got the draft. 1 lap to go. Ethan Lane's victory might be in jeopardy here. Lariah is within striking distance. White flag, last lap here in Fontana. If Michael Lariah is to win tonight, he will be able to lock himself into the final 5. He's going to have to bobble up high through turns 1 and 2 and back off. That will give some momentum to Ethan Lane. Lane so far has won 50% of the races this season, and he's looking to go out with a bang. Lariah dives deep right through turns 3 and 4. Ethan Lane remains up on the top side, and his momentum looks to prevail. Coming out of the checkered flag, side by side, Lane makes contact with the wall. At the line, it doesn't matter. 14th win of the season. Lane wins in Auto Club. His last race of the campaign, his last win of the campaign. 14th, the record high for an Octane Series season. Second place again, Michael Lariah. Ross Cato's gamble pays off. In only his 3rd podium this year. It comes at a crucial time, and he'll go right back above the cuts. Ethan Lane in his final race of 2024 wins over Michael Lariah in 2nd. Ross Cato finishes 3rd with Tom Wetmore 4th. Brad Patton is P5. It'll be 6th in Jacob Fife and Nick Tarbuck 7th. 8th place, Sam Nieto. 9th for Bobby Terrell. 10th place is Don Stevenson, and 11th is Galen Goodman. Final driver on the lead lap is Bobby Ross, with 13th in Cody Smith, 14th Randy Fiash, P15 in John Steele, 16th Chuck Sweeting, Alan Rawwell, 17th and last, as Ethan Lane begins the celebration. Parking it in virtual victory lane tonight, Ethan Lane. Of course, he's found himself here many a time before, and he does it again. A fitting end to his season, although he will not be championship eligible. We expected nothing less. Lane wins from Michael Lariah in a fantastic final 5 laps. I mean, that sequence was as close as it got. Michael Lariah, of course, credit where it is due and taking advantage of those last mistakes, but still no stopping Ethan Lane in what is unfortunately the farewell race for his championship bid, which is, of course, going to be much different now. Last race, last win, and what a win it was. Close at the end, but overall dominant in Auto Club to finish off 2024 with your 14th, a record high in the season. Well, first and foremost, how was it out there for the last time?
Oh man, it was fun. Auto Club's always a really great racetrack, fun racetrack too, especially with the multiple lines you can run. Yeah, no, it was fun. Definitely sucks though that we're not gonna be able to compete for the championship. But it does help that we are competing in contender next or for this coming up season to try to make Coke.
And of course, Contender Series. That's what's up next for you. We'd love, of course, to talk about that. We'll get there in just a moment. First and foremost, this race. I mean, we've seen so many victories in the last few. This will be the 7th win of 10 races here. It's been a dominant stretch, and these Gen 4s have really come to your liking. So when it comes to Auto Club, high speed, you had the pole from the beginning. How was it managing strategy? Was there anything that really stuck out to you?
Fuel was a big one, just like Michigan. But tires were another one. Um, this track is a lot older than Michigan, asphalt wise and aging wise. So the grip level is not quite as high, so you can't run as hard. But no, it was fun. Excuse me. Um, being able to rip the fence, especially there at the end with Michael, we're basically having a competition of who could put it on the wall better without hitting it. But yeah, that was fun.
And everything working out just right. Solid finish to, of course, the race and the campaign here. Now, 2024 coming to an early close as you'll be going out there trying to, of course, get into the Coke Series. So with that being said, we first and foremost wish you luck, because if you do make it there, we won't really be seeing all too much of you here in the Octane Series. But with that being said, reflecting on this season, how was it out there on track for the first 27 weeks?
It's been fun. This league is great. I've always loved racing with these guys for the past couple of years now. Um, the competition's definitely ramped up a lot with this Gen 4 car between me, Michael, and Nick. um, the big three, so to say. It definitely was fun from Vegas all the way to now. So a little bittersweet that it's our last race, but we'll ride off into the sunset with uh, going out on top.
It's just about the best way you could go out. Victory lane once again here. Auto Club is yours. Ethan Lane, any final shout outs or messages you'd like to give before moving on to the Contender Series?
Just for you to always put on these broadcasts, David. Always fun to go back and watch, and then Jacob and everyone for allowing me to run this league. Wish it didn't have to end this way. Wish we could have raced for the championship in 3 weeks, but Contender definitely is higher on the totem pole for where we got to be. So yeah, just thanks to everyone who's raced so far this year. Definitely come back out next year. Sure, even be better.
And a wonderful season with 14 wins on the campaign. Ethan Lane winning to finish it off. Checkered flag is yours here from Fontana. Thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you.
Lane on the move. Well, I think the only driver who might be a little bit happy to hear this one that we'll speak to tonight will be first and foremost Michael Araya. Second place, and it looks like, well, we've been here before, but tonight got very close at the end. Maybe unexpected. You played the strategy game well, especially with that final stint coming your way, and nearly had a chance to go out there and win as you were leading in the entry of turn 3. Second place, and a good start here to the round of 10.
Man, I wanted that win bad, David. I was trying everything I could there. I'm just happy I was able to run Ethan back down the last 15 laps or so. I was pretty committed to the bottom in this race, just with the benefits that, you can save your tires a little bit more and also stretch it a little bit longer on fuel. And I think a lot of people were in that same mindset to at least run most of the race with. And but at the end there, Ethan did such a good job of getting through traffic. And the only way I was gonna have a chance to beat him was to short pit and beat him by a lap or so. But he was still able to get around me there, and he set sail. But the last 10 laps or so, I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna catch him by running the bottom. I got to try something different here. So I'm comfortable running the top, but I wasn't running it much all night, so I had to get in a rhythm quick. And man, I'm glad I tried it because I was hauling the mail there, and I I tried everything I could to just dive bomb it into the corner and maybe slide up in front of them, but the way we were wearing our tires, I running that top line so much, there's just no grip when you get back to the bottom. So I think in hindsight, on that last lap there, through 3 and 4, I would have just run more of a middle line, and I'd carry better momentum. And then I saw that he scraped the wall a little bit there, and that would have made the difference. I think I would have been able to beat him at the line, but he still ran a really good race.
And overall, I mean, what a race it was to the checkered flag there. Final 5 laps, and we know the stakes. The victory punches the ticket. You got a huge buffer, but a victory is so much more important. How aggressive were you in making those final laps work out for yourself?
Oh, super aggressive. Points were not in the back of my mind whatsoever. I'm sick of finishing second. I want to beat Ethan. He's definitely the benchmark in this league. So I was doing all I could there, and I'm at least glad I made it interesting tonight.
And certainly was a great finish to look back and watch, but I'm sure now sights are set on bigger things, such as a victory. It's going to become a little bit of a different format for the next few races. We talked to Ethan Lane. It's his last race. For you, Nick Tarbuck, and the rest of the field, well, of course, you're going to be moving on to Martinsville for a 250-lap short track slugfest. It's going to be an exciting one, and we're not really quite sure how it's going to play out just yet. How do you feel about your chances there?
I feel confident. I think any of these tracks we go to where, just managing tires, and especially Martinsville, it's a place where you can easily uh, burn your rear tires, especially with this car. So, just throttle management is going to be super important getting off those corners. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to give me a good shot to at least compete for a win. But you always got to be careful with lap traffic at that place. We'll have to see how that is, and if it really becomes a factor, whoever's able to navigate lap traffic better could very well, that could make the difference between winning and finishing second there. So um, I'm definitely looking forward to the challenge.
And we're, of course, excited about what's yet to come. Now a chance to maybe punch the ticket up next week, but second place once more. Michael Araya, runner-up from Auto Club. Any last shout-outs you'd like to give? The floor is yours.
Of course, shout out to you, David, for putting on these broadcasts each week. The admins in IRL, my teammate Sam Nieto, and I'm going to give a shout out to Ethan Lane. Sad to hear it's going to be his last race. I mean, he's run majority of the season. He's put on a hell of a show. So, like I said, he's the benchmark in this league. So, I want to be able to see if I can hang with him, and I wish he could finish it out. But I understand he's going to be running the Contender Series, so that's obviously much bigger in the scheme of things. So I wish him luck in there.
And now it looks like championship contention might be sort of a passing of a torch to find a victory lane up next. Second place, Michael Araya here from the California Coast 200. Thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you.
Araya on the move. One last driver we got to speak to who I think is the driver of the day. Did not necessarily get a victory, but this is a huge race for the man who comes in as our 10th seed and pulls out a podium. Strategy, finesse to the max. Ross Cato, big top 3 finish and one you've been waiting on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Best finish of the season. I'm really glad to do it, especially with this car track combo. I am so glad that this track is preserved for our liking, and it's just so great to wheel it around this place. Talking about the strategy, I kind of did it halfway on accident. I didn't really want to risk sputtering coming into pit road that first stop, and came in a little early, and it helped me to be on fresher tires for the first for the second run, and then get the stage win, and then lead a lot of laps. So yeah, I'm definitely grateful to not just have this finish, but to be racing wheel to wheel with the best, and Araya and Lane and Wetmore and the others. So yeah, just definitely an awesome night.
And a great night for you to have. I mean, we talk about the strategy, and you decide to go for the double undercut. I will say this much. I was skeptical at first at how well it would hold off, but you seemed to time it almost perfectly. Only a lap or two, which usually means more, but here in Auto Club, you manage your stuff very well, given how quick we're going, and it looks like the tire degradation actually didn't catch up to you as much as we anticipated.
Yeah, well, I about after the midway stage break, I kind of started to get a little bit more antsy that I had made a mistake, and I wasn't going to be able to run the top line to my liking, being in the fuel situation. So I really thought I dug myself a hole, but I kind of corrected that last run, and ran the bottom a little bit and just tried to save the tires. And Fortunately, I was able to save enough fuel and tire to get the result that we did in holding back Terrebonne and Wetmore. Of course, Terrebonne had that mistake, which definitely helped me out, but it's really great to hold off that 51 car in Wetmore with as talented as he is. So yeah, it's just so wonderful to perform racing wheel to wheel with these guys. There's just so much talent. We went caution free because these guys are just they really know how to keep a car underneath them, and it's a joy racing with a lot of these dudes.
And caution free to kick off the round of 10. I'm not sure if we can say the same when we move on to the home of your first Octane Series win next week. I'm sure everyone remembers, of course, what came down to a do-or-die victory for you, collecting the checkered flag. Immediately, anyway, you're not in the same position. You're in a much better spot heading back to Martinsville. Are you confident at all about maybe replicating that?
Yeah, Martinsville's a track where I seem to kind of just, I guess, be the right place, the right time. And I think my patience really kind of pays off at that track. And to be honest, I haven't really done many laps in this car at Martinsville, but I think I'll have a good showing if, assuming I can stay out of any trouble. With these playoff situations, there tends to be a fair amount of guys who are in desperate situations, and that sort of tends to cascade, and some people can get caught up in incidents that they had no part of, especially at the shortest track on the schedule. So I'm definitely going to keep my wits about me and just definitely try to be at the right place at the right time and just keep my equipment in good shape.
And hoping, of course, not to get banged up as we go short track racing once again. Huge top three to move out of the negatives and right up to the bubble battle. Ross Cato, P3 here from Auto Club. You have any last messages to give out before we go racing next week?
Yeah, I always enjoy racing with Michael Araya. He's such a talent behind the wheel. And I wasn't sure if I could hold him off for second. And I also wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get up to Ethan Lane, but he did. And we saw that last lap dive going into the final corner. So, yeah, just appreciate racing with the 44, and also just really enjoy how this league is orchestrated with the admins and with the broadcast. I'm really glad I was invited by Tom Wetmore to join this league last year. So hopefully there'll be many more races to come, and hopefully with that will come some wins.
We're hoping to see some more success. A big top three for you tonight, Ross. Working the strategy very well here in Fontana. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
And with Ross Cato on the move, huge top three from 10th seed up to the third position tonight. Statement race for the number 12, Michael Araya. Well, he's doing Michael Araya things, second place. And a farewell tour for Ethan Lane that finishes with success. His 14th and final win on the calendar here in the Octane Series. With that being said, Martinsville for 250 laps is sure to be a spectacle. Not quite sure how it's going to play out in all honesty, and that makes it even more exciting. It's going to be one that we, of course, don't want to miss. And if you don't want to miss it, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel here live on FTN as you've been watching coverage here from the virtual Auto Club Speedway. Thank you for tuning in to race number 27 of the Octane Series, the Next Level Racing Championship is in full swing. And here from Fontana, Ethan Lane comes through for win number 14. I've been David Kreutz, commentating and producing, so if you enjoyed, stick around for next Tuesday, same time, same place. Only is going to be in Martinsville, Virginia, in the virtual realm. If you'd like to join the Integrity Racing League, scan the QR code on your screen, and you can find out what it takes to drive in any of our FTN broadcasted leagues from Monday to Sunday and any day in between. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic night, and can't wait to see you for our next race at the virtual Martinsville Speedway.